Welcome back to Film Recaps. Today I will show you a horror, science fiction, drama film from 2018 titled Bird Box. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. At the premise of the movie, we see Mallory giving instructions to the children, known only as Boy and Girl, about their upcoming journey in the river. She guides them to follow her commands and not to take their blindfolds off even if they hear something and want to have a look. They pack their stuff and start the journey. A cut back to 5 years earlier shows a pregnant Mallory in her apartment. Her sister Jessica comes in and tells her about a strange thing that is causing unexplained mass suicides. As Mallory turns on the TV, every channel airs the news about these strange events happening throughout Europe and Russia and instructs people to remain in their houses. Jessica looks at her paintings and says they represent loneliness, but Mallory says it's about being unable to connect with some people. Jessica talks to her unborn child and says it would be different with her, but she does not agree with her. They both go to the hospital for her checkup. On their way to the doctor's office, they see a girl talking on the phone. Inside the doctor's office, we see Dr. Lapham explaining Mallory, while she and Jessica talk about their complicated relationship with their parents. Mallory is not happy with her pregnancy and wishes things were different. Dr. Lapham is aware of her thoughts, so she gives her the option of giving her baby up for adoption. On her way out, Mallory sees the same girl they passed by earlier, banging her head against the wall. They both get scared and run to the car. Mallory tells Jessica that whatever was causing strange suicides in Russia has come to the United States. Jessica gets worried about her and tries to convince her to live with her until this is all over, but Mallory refuses her offer. Jessica's phone rings. As Mallory turns back to get it out from the bag on the back seat, Jessica sees something on the road and loses control over the car. Mallory tries to calm her down, but she hits another car and their car turns upside down. When they make their way out of the damaged car, Mallory can only watch as her sister commits suicide by standing in front of a truck. Amidst the chaos, Mallory gets up and starts to run, but she gets hit by the crowd and falls to the ground. A woman, Lydia, comes to help her, but she too hears the voice of her dead mom and gets into a burning car, which soon explodes. As Mallory sits there helpless, a passerby, Tom, comes to help her and asks her to not look up because this strange thing affects anybody who looks at it. They both run to a nearby house from where Lydia came to help. They, along with few others, manage to get inside the house. As they all stand there in a panic, Mallory tries to call her mom, but she does not pick up. They all talk about what might be causing the suicides. Tom says that it only affects those who look at it. They close all the doors and cover windows with newspapers so nobody sees through them. They turn on the TV for the news, but it loses signal and transmission stops. After seeing Mallory depressed, Tom tries to talk to Mallory, who breaks into tears and tells him about what happened to Jessica. A cut back to the present shows Mallory and the children as they continue their journey. It's been 6 hours on the river. Mallory tries to contact people over the radio, but no one responds. Suddenly the birds start chirping. Mallory gets alarmed and starts to look around. Back at the house, they all get worried about the limited food supply at the house. As they talk, they hear a knock on the door and the voice of a woman crying for help. She requests them to let her in. Tom wants to help her, but Douglas does not let him open the door. Mallory picks up the gun and points it at him. She asks Tom to open the door for the woman outside. A pregnant woman, Olympia, comes in and requests them to let her stay. Greg proposes the idea to look outside through the security cameras because that way it won't be a direct image but only the signals. They all go upstairs and Greg decides to look through the cameras, so they tie him to the chair and leave the room. Later, they all hear sounds coming from the room and run to see him. Lucy breaks the screen and they all run to rescue Greg, but he kills himself by hitting his head against the edge. They all get devastated by his death. At night, Olympia comes to Mallory's room and talks about their unborn babies, but she just wants to be left alone and leaves the room. Mallory hears a thumping sound, so as she looks around the house, she finds out it's only Felix and Lucy hooking up. When she closes the door, Tom comes to her and they both start laughing at the situation. Back at the river, as they continue to move forward, a man attacks them, but Mallory, along with the kids, manages to escape. At the house, Charlie tells them that they can get the food from his store at the supermarket because he has the keys. Mallory, Tom, Douglas and Lucy decide to go. They ask Charlie to come with them because he knows about the security systems. He hesitates but gives in when they insist. They paint all the windows of the car and use the GPS as a guide. On their way, they come across a strange creature but manage to escape. When they reach the store, they get overwhelmed to see the store full of food, so they start taking whatever they can carry. Tom gives a packet to Mallory as a baby shower gift, and they both talk about their childhood. As Mallory roams around the store, she sees a bird cage with birds in it and decides to take it with her. Douglas proposes that they all should stay here instead of going back to the house, but they all refuse his idea and scolds him for being selfish since the people they left behind would starve. Suddenly, they hear someone knocking at the back door and asking for help. As they get close to the door, Charlie recognizes the voice and tells them it's his crazy colleague, Fish Fingers. They open the door to help him, but before they let him in, birds start chirping and Mallory realizes something is wrong. They try to close the door again but cannot hold it. Charlie runs behind the door, taking a fish finger with him and sacrificing his life for them. When they reach back at the house, Cheryl asks about Charlie, to which Douglas mocks his death. Mallory shouts at him and says he saved their lives. Olympia asks about the birds, and Mallory replies that she brought them because they can sense when the creature is around. In the kitchen, Douglas and Mallory talk. Douglas tells her about his life. Mallory thinks he is just like her father, blaming everything on others and not taking responsibility. In the meantime, Felix and Lucy steal the car and leave. At the river, as Mallory continues to row, the boat hits an abandoned vehicle in the river and the boy falls out of the boat. As she rescues him, their bag falls into the water and they are left with no food and blankets. Mallory takes the boat to a nearby shore and goes in search of food and warm blankets. As she collects the blankets from an abandoned hospital, she hears the creature whisper her name. In the meantime, as she does not show up, Girl gets worried about her and comes out of the boat to look for her. But before she can go forward, Mallory drags her back into the boat and scolds her for not listening to her instructions. She again strictly orders that if something happens to her, they should save themselves instead of helping her. 5 years ago, when things become unbearable, Mallory gets disappointed and thinks it's the end of the world, but Tom comforts her. Olympia lets a stranger, Gary, inside the house who requests them to let him stay. He tells them about some psychos from a mental hospital who broke into his house and forced him and his colleagues to come outside and look at the creature. He says that those psychos did not need a blindfold and were happy to see it. Douglas doesn't believe his story and points a gun at him, but Cheryl attacks him from the back and Tom locks him in the garage. Olympia apologizes for letting Gary in. She thinks she is not strong like Mallory and considers herself a burden. Mallory comforts her and gives her a gift for her child. Olympia asks her to take care of her baby if something happens to her. Mallory hesitates at first, but eventually agrees to do so. At the river, the girl carries the same toy that Mallory gave to Olympia, suggesting that Girl is her daughter. Mallory tells the kids about the rapids. She tells them water flow is extremely dangerous at the rapids, and if they want to cross it safely, one of the kids has to look and guide her. The boy agrees to do so, but Mallory says she will decide who will look. Back in the house, Mallory and Olympia give birth to a boy and a girl respectively. Gary has sketches of a mysterious creature. He also puts the birds in the freezer. Douglas sees him, and when Tom comes downstairs, he tells him about Gary, but before he can do anything, Gary attacks him. Then he comes upstairs and requests to see the babies. He uncovers the windows. They all then realize that he is one of them, but it's too late. Olympia jumps out of the window to her death, and Cheryl stabs herself in the neck with scissors. Douglas and Gary both get killed in the fight, and Tom survives. He goes upstairs to see Mallory and the babies. Mallory cries because everybody except them is dead at the house. Mallory, Tom, and the kids manage to survive for 5 years. Mallory does not name the kids and still calls them boy and girl, and she does not even let them call their mother. One day, when Tom tells a story about other children and playing outside, Mallory gets angry at him and asks him to not give them false hope, as she thinks they would never be able to go outside. One night, they receive a call from Rick, who tells them about a safe place and tells them to come there through the river. Mallory does not believe him, but Tom says they should take a chance. When they go out for food again, the psychos attack them. Tom convinces Mallory to leave with the kids while he distracts them. He asks her to go to Rick if he does not make it. Tom fights and manages to kill all of them, but eventually gives in and commits suicide after getting affected by the creature. Mallory goes back to the house and decides to go to Rick. When they finally reach the rapids, Mallory cannot choose between them, so she decides that no one will look and they will cross the rapids with blindfolds on. It's very dangerous, but they manage to come out safely. As they start to walk through the forest, Mallory hears the voices, but she ignores them. She trips over something and falls into a ditch. Boy hears Mallory's voice, who asks him to take the blindfolds off. Mallory gets up and hears him talking to someone, so she shouts at him and asks to not listen to those voices. She finds Boy, but Girl does not come to her. Boy tells her that Girl is scared of her. Mallory apologizes to her and convinces her to come to them. The strange creature attacks them, but they manage to reach Rick's place. He asks them to take their blindfolds off, and Mallory sees that it's a school for blind people. They see many people and a lot of birds there. Rick tells that the birds warn the sighted people about the creatures. Mallory sees Dr. Lapham there, and when she asks the kids about their names, Mallory finally names them Olympia and Tom, and finally accepts that she is their mother. Mallory then releases the birds from her bird box. Let me know in the comments section who your favorite character was. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.